Hello everyone. So this will be a shorter presentation. What I want to talk about here is what I announced before is the resizing part of the greater picture. Because now when we're going to the web, we're going to the full screen apps, we need a good resizer. As I was stating before, entire web is working with the relative coordinate position system. So when you're developing in the web, you usually position your components relative to each other. You don't have usually absolute coordinates, and that's how the web is doing the responsiveness. Well, if we want to stay in Clarion, we have absolute coordinate system. We give coordinates to the components. We don't give relative positioning. So we need some way of transforming that absolute positioning to relative positioning so we can resize it properly and we can scale the windows to keep their form on different resolutions or different sizes. So this is one approach to that solution, is the manager and resizer, is the product of us. It has very interesting approach to the subject, so I'm going to just explain how it works. So you add a template globally, and you enable the resizer. So what I do this, you can have a normal resizer in your app, and this checkbox will disable it. So if you disable this one, you will use standard resizer. If you enable this one, you will use this resizer. It has built-in toolbar options as well. I'm going to show that because some people asked about that in the previous demo. So what happens is that the standard resizer will be replaced by this proprietary resizer, and I'll show how it works. It works a bit differently than the standard resizer. Let me open one more screen. Okay, for example, this screen. When I resize the screen, it will act very similar how web resizes the components. For example, here, it automatically recognizes these buttons are right anchor based, for example, and this group is left anchor based. This button is obviously anchor based to this group, not to these buttons, because of the proximity, initial proximity on the screen. It did recognize, and it did position this button toward this control. You can change that behavior. So that's the idea with this resizer. We can add, if we are not satisfied with the default automatic behavior, we can change the behavior, just as we are doing in the web design. So I can change the relative position of the controls through the extension template. So if we pay attention here, when I'm resizing this screen, you'll notice that the list box columns are resizing as well. So they are proportionally resized. And if I want them to not resize, rather show additional columns, I can change that through options as well. So that's the idea. Now let's check the vertical resizing. So my entire window is keeping its form while it's resized. That's the general idea. And it acts just as if it's a relative position system, not the absolute position system. We can check here. Here the image control is interesting for resizing. I can show some options there as well. We see the buttons are automatically positioned properly, and they're actually pushing around when I'm resizing. Like, for example, this print button is automatically pushed down with the anchors. For example, here, we see the button group is pushed down. So let me show you some options. This is actually a pretty simple screen. We have a much complex screen, like I, for example, shown in the net setup demo here. I can open it without any screen, so this won't be any screen presentation. So this is a more complex screen. We see lots of bunch of fields up. We see two list boxes. We see multiple tabs with multiple controls. And when I resize the screen, you will notice how the controls are pushed around, but the screen still keeps its form. That's important. It's like it's a normal relative position system instead of absolute position system. You see the buttons don't change their size. That's very important. They are pushed around, but they keep their size, because we don't usually benefit from increasing the button size. There's nothing to it. So the entries, the text boxes, the list boxes, they are actually increasing their size, and they are pushing the controls that do not increase. So we are properly using the screen size for the elements that actually benefit from resizing. That's the idea. Here, for example, images will take resize part, but the list box on the right side won't actually check that in the options. I can change the behavior. So this is a bit more complex screen, and you see how it performs. So the options of the resizer are interesting. For example, let's take this window. So what I can do here, for example, I have an image. So all the options, this is just as we are in web now, web development. So when I go in extension template, I get this screen with a bunch of options that's basically automatic, but I can change them. So the system has an automatic mode. If you don't do anything, it will do automatic mode. But if you want to change stuff, you change it here. For example, do I want this control forcibly to resize horizontally or vertically? Because some controls won't. But if you, for example, on a button, if you engage resizing, it will increase the button or decrease it. This is an important feature for the images. Keep aspect ratio. So what I can do is, for an image, I can say, do resize, but keep aspect ratio. So what it will do, it will resize horizontally or vertically, and then in a different coordinate, it will keep the ratio between the width and the height, so the image doesn't lose its form on a different resolutions. This is very interesting. Background image, for example, you can say that this image is a background image and should scale in the background with the window, should not push controls around. The system usually does recognize such controls because of their coordinates are on the borders and they have controls all over it. But if it doesn't, you can change the behavior through this option here. Then there are interesting options: maximum width percentage, maximum height, maximum. What you can do actually, if you have, for example, two sets of controls, for example, the list box and the image, with these settings, you can say that the list box will take maximum increase of like, I don't know, 50%. So the rest of the increase goes to the image always. So you can dictate how the controls are resized, to which level they are reduced or increased. Because sometimes you want specific control to increase only slightly, and the other control to take all the additional size. So with these options, you can actually coordinate such behavior. For example, you have a list box that has 15 columns, and only 3 are visible on normal resolution. So you want all the columns to be visible on high resolution, and the list box next to it has only 3 columns, so you don't want it to resize actually a lot. So you coordinate with these numbers that the left list box takes more of resizing space than the right one. That's the idea between the maximum width or maximum width percentage. You can assign width in units or in percentage of increase to original size. Here are this is relative, extend parent. What this means, if you have a group with a bunch of controls inside, you can dictate for specific control, will it increase the parent? For example, I have a group with a list box inside. And what I can tell to the system, this list box will expand and will push the borders of the parent control. So it will increase the group size. If I say it won't extend the parent, then the list box will only extend as the parent extends. So if some other control extends the parent, the list box will take that size, but it will not increase the size of parent alone. This is example automatic behavior with the tabs. Always the first tab is actually pushing the sheet size, and the additional tabs are always covering that space. This is because we don't want that the third tab increase the size of the sheet, so the initial tab that's usually open on the start has too much empty space on it because it didn't resize enough. So initial tab resize the sheets. So for initial tab, this is extended horizontal vertical on, and on additional tabs, it's off. But with this option, you can dictate any sort of behavior from the child to parent control. Anchor controls. So the system automatically tries to recognize the correct anchors for all the components and adjust their relative positioning. But if you want to change that behavior, if you want, for example, say that on this screen, that this button is right anchored or left anchored, you first see what's the behavior, and then you change it, and it will anchor differently than the system automatically adjusts. So you can change the anchors. We have horizontal, a vertical anchor. Here we just type on the control, the use of the control. Minimum width, same as maximum width, but this is activated when shrinking the screen. So when reducing size, we have different sets of parameters for increasing size or reducing size of the window. Ignore control children. This means that it will not resize the child components of such control. This is useful in a situation where you're dynamically creating controls and you are specifically adjusting their size. For example, inside a group, I'm creating 10 images, and I'm adjusting their size by the group size, and I don't want resizer to do anything. Then, on a group, I will set this option to on, so the resizer will not recursively go to controls and resize them. And we have resizing parent. Usually when we design a window, every control has a parent, but we can, with this, override a control parent only for resizing. So that specific control is then considering a child of a specific parent instead of the default one. Useful for some situations. For example, when you want a control to be resized by the entire sheet, not by simple tab. For example, you create a control that's basically occupying the space in all the tabs. It's in the sheet space. And on that control, you set its parent not on a tab, but on a sheet. And then all tabs will try to anchor with that control. So all the tab controls will try to anchor on that control, not only on control on a single tab. That's, for example, the example of such option. And we have a child control option. So for example, we have a group, and we can say here that for all controls of type line in this parent, we change the behavior. So we don't have to click every button on the screen. We can actually specialize the resizer for all the buttons on the screen. Additionally, I can do this for the entire resizer in the global app control option. So I can go into global extension, and here I can add that all my buttons do resize, for example. So I change the behavior of entire resizer for all the screens at once. I don't have to go and click each button on its own. So those are the default options that you can actually tweak with the resizer. Well, it's mostly automatic. You can tweak stuff around, especially with the maximum width, maximum height resizing. And there is one more option that is activated only with the list boxes. It's the enable column scaling. So when you increase the size of a list box, if this option is turned on, it will resize the columns as well. If it's turned off, it won't resize the columns, but if there are additional columns not visible in the default, they will become visible. So those are two behaviors you are actually choosing on a list box. All this behavior you can change in the embed code with the specific commands. So that's the resizer part of the story. You need to play with it to see how you can actually get such good results with all those. For example, this screen is a pretty good example. So, and there are more options to this resizer. This is the toolbar management. So what we saw with any screen, it comes with the predefined React toolbar, for example. But if we want to control the toolbar management through the Clarion code, because this part of the template is actually in the open source file, and you can change the behavior of such toolbars. What I can do is, on a menu, I can say that this window menu is added in the GUI toolbar, and then here I can say, show me side toolbar and NDI toolbar. So it should look something like this then when started. This is the app that I was showing before, had the toolbar enabled. So this toolbar is Clarion-based code. So I'm watching this as a Clarion app. It works in any screen as well. So it draws the toolbar from the menu like the side toolbar. This is the default behavior. You can change the skinning, the masking, and everything. And when I click any of the screens, they open a screen. I have an MDI toolbar here. So this is the look of the app you saw before. It's same as any screen, but we have a left toolbar. And then we can dynamically even say, without options, I want an upper toolbar as well. Then it transforms into left toolbar and then the buttons up. So you have both toolbars, upper and right toolbar at the same time, for example. I can maybe remove the sidebar. I didn't test any of this. I just pull it fast together and it seems to work. We have now only upper toolbar with the sheet now. It changes a bit behavior. So we can have an upper toolbar, only 2 levels. We use them now. So both levels are used. If I turn on the sidebar, then we'll have only a single level up. And all the other levels will be left. If I have 3 deep level menu, I will have 2 of them here and 1 up. Only the 2-level upper menu will be available when using upper toolbar. So both of these toolbars are Clarion code. And you can additionally change behavior of your app using those sidebars. In the any screen, it will come with the predefined, here's my app. It was from the interface. Let me try this. I don't know if this is going to work. To combine them both could work. The app did work before. Yeah, it worked. So now we have an React toolbar together with the sidebar toolbar. Because I clicked in the extension template that the menu is hidden, then the React toolbar doesn't have any option. If I want it enabled here as well, then in the extension template I would click the keep menus always on. So I would have double the menu here and the toolbar together. So that's basically all to it. Pretty simple. Nice addition. The resizer part is important, especially with these new responsive full screens. You will need to have a good resizer, so we need to have more options there. So the questions? Yeah.
Hello. There we go. All right. This goes back to the server questions. When you were talking about your load balancing server, this was from this morning, how many servers can we put together in load balancing?
There is no limit.
How far have you tested it out to?
We have an instance with 8, and it covers around 1,300 concurrent users.
Okay, because that's going to be our biggest thing as we anticipate.
Yeah, we came to 8,000.
Yeah, you know you can do 8 for sure. Okay, so everything hits that IP address, the load balancing server, and it routes it to where it needs to go.
Basically all the servers in the grid have their unique external internet address. So you need to register each server separately. You need to have certificate for each server. So you start, for example, server1.com, server 2, server 3, server 4, server, and you add all those servers, just like they are normal web servers. And then on the primary server, you add them. And then all the users are actually initially connecting to the primary server. And then the primary server redirects them to their specific server. Once they're redirected, they are not anymore communicating through the primary server. They're communicating directly through the redirected server.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I got a question on the resizing. Is there any way to select several controls
and change their option at once?
Yeah.
No, that's that's the limitation of the Clarion template interface. We cannot combine, as I know, the extension template for multiple controls.
Right.
Only thing what we can actually do is that I show that by the control type, for example, grouping several controls in the same group, and then if they are same type, we can assign all of their options through the child control options. So all the childs of the same type get these settings. That's
Right.
the closest we can do.
Closest,
Yeah.
okay.
You could actually do it through the source code if you would like loop all the child controls and manually add the commands. Maybe that. Because all of this, what I change, is added as a template code as commands. So we can always call those commands manually.
Right.
So that could be the way to do it.
Nobody?
We had more questions before, but obviously no more.
Must have answered them already.
Yeah. Okay, that's it then. Maybe I have something more to show, but I cannot remember enough. So.
So all of that will be included in any screen? All
No,
those
this
templates?
resizer at this moment will not be included. It can be purchased separately.
Uh-huh.
We'll see. It's not even this version. Usually now, at this moment, there is a version online up to Clarion 10, but it's TeamApp-based version. It's not compatible with any screen. Or maybe it is, but any screen will work with Clarion 11 to apps. So that version online is not compiled for Clarion 11. We need to recompile it. It will be in a week, available in a week. And at this moment, it won't be part of Soft Velocity product chain, but it might become in the future. We'll see how popular it will be. And we'll see the other resizer option, are they going to catch up with this new full screen interfacing? So, because there are other resizers on the market as well. I wanted the best succeeds actually, because we need a good resizer and we need to develop it further. We need a good absolute based point resizer for this full screen web environment. That's very important. Or we're going to just stay with the small screens around, and that's not a web-like app. So, yeah.
Just a little bit of where you were showing like the menu down beside. I missed a little bit where you were showing the menu down the sidebar on the side and how it would drop and show the other items. How is it that you're doing that?
Yeah,
Using what?
it's the standard Clarion code. You get the code with the text extension template. It's just creating dynamically buttons and areas. So this is a button, it's flat. This is behind the background image. So what it does in this position, it just creates additional buttons and move controls around. Quite
I
simple.
understand.
Yeah.
And that's part of that extension template?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you
Thank
get
you.
source code for that. You can actually change the toolbar behavior completely because it's not closed source. It's not DLL. Only the resizer is in DLL, the code of the resizer.
Okay. So this is how it was being mimicked in the any screen as well then? It was
Yes.
mimicking this that was created by
Yeah,
this extension
the app
template?
I showed before has a left side toolbar from this extension template, for example. There was an app I showed before. I can show it again, no problem. Let me just type in some. Somewhere here on my server in Europe. I can maybe immediately enter with, I think it's something like that. I did load. It was this software. And this is a Clarion app. So login screen, only is in Croatian. It's a real life project. It has actually a multi-language support somewhere inside here by languages. So what we have here is a classic GUI manager interface. You have that left toolbar. You can add icons with the extension template as well. I think these icons are actually mimicked from the menu bar. So if you add an icon on a menu bar, it will be shown here as well. So this is the left side toolbar from GUI manager. It has the background image added as well. Here is the background image behind. This is a procurement software, for example. This is a procurement software. So if you need a procurement software, call us. Yeah, this is the dashboard. There are some activities here. This is SVG controls. Pretty easily to control them through the new any screen. This is the calendar. This is a classic dashboard now used in the web interface. And we have a bunch of very complex screen here with the orders, stuff like that. You can drill down into the form. You see the resizer doing a good job here, resizing all the screens. So here, if I choose this tab, this screen has multiple tabs. They are changed by these buttons here, so stuff like that. Pretty complex interface, pretty complex app. The server is in Europe, so this what you see, the rounding is mostly database access. This is not any screen. Probably some database query or something. He downloaded here some icons. So I can probably open them in the Word document and stuff. I can attach stuff. So it's a pretty complex app, pretty live complex app. Auctions, for example, stuff like that.
And so the hamburger menu in any screen, normally is that creating it by default, just from the standard report menu bar? Or how is the hamburger and all
this
the,
one, this one?
Maybe not, well, the hamburger at the top, but
This one,
no.
This?
That's, yeah,
this menu.
yes.
This is the any screen menu. This is the replica of the Clarion menu inside the regex menu. Yeah, it's automatically replicated. Here
Correct.
it's clicked that the menu is hidden, so it's not replicated here because it's in the application settings.
Correct.
Because the menu is here. You can have both of them actually, but
Gotcha.
maybe it could be confusing to have them
Right.
both.
That's
so
what
it's
I'm saying.
disabled here.
So by default with
yeah,
any
it's
screen.
here is disabled, for
Yeah.
example. It
Okay.
can be enabled.
Perfect. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. That's it. One more question. Yeah.
Yeah, my question regards that any screen,
Yes.
does that have to be run, does the application have to be run on one of your servers?
No, no, no.
Or
No,
could-
when you purchase the any screen, you will get a server installation. So what you need is a dedicated server on which you will install it. And then when you install it, you set the internet IP address, the certificates, and you run your own server.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
but like in my case, for example, I've got like 450 different locations.
Okay.
And they don't, many of those locations wouldn't, they want to host their own data. So would it require purchasing a license for each location?
I think Robert mentioned that the purchase will be done, subscription will be developer-based. So all those servers, if you have a one-in-one developer, you will pay only one license, and you can have as much server as you want. So it's developer purchase-based, yeah.
So
For developer.
we could distribute it so that each one of the customers could have their own,
Yeah,
their own data,
you will
their
install,
own
you will
server.
install, you will install their servers with your license. Yeah.
Okay. You ain't clue what that's going to cost?
Robert didn't mention the prices yet, so I don't know.
Well, we figured we'd squeeze you.
Yeah. Nice tactic.
On the theme of what we might have missed, when you were clicking on turning the sidebar on and off, is that something that can be made available for a user configuration, or that was merely
Yes.
a developer configuration?
Yeah, that's
Right.
the user configuration. So user
Okay.
can turn it off, turn it on, and stuff like that.
And then you had said that all of this can be driven through embed points as well, so we could conditionally enable whether they could do
Yes.
something
Yeah, you can.
based on
Yep.
parameters inside the program. So at runtime, it could be determined whether to display a menu a
Yeah, it
certain
can.
way or
Yeah,
not.
yeah, it can.
Great.
Yeah. No more questions. Well, it's almost half an hour, so we're good. Okay, that's it. Where is the... There is no John. Here is John. John, we are done. So, thank you.
Okay, take a break, but come back. Because at 1:30 sharp, we got 5